What's up, Liberty lovers? Today's show is sponsored by our friends at ammo.com. There's nothing more American than ordering a stockpile of ammunition and having delivered right to your doorstep. But you know what? It gets even better than that. Not only does ammo.com deliver sweet, beautiful packages of ammunition right to your door, they're also run by libertarians. In fact, you can read an awesome article on their site right now that I've linked to on the show notes page called Locked Up: How the Modern Prison Industrial Complex Puts So Many Americans in Jail. And you know what? It gets even better than that. When you buy at ammo.com, 1% of every single sale, that's gross sale, not net, goes to a libertarian cause of your choosing that you get to pick at checkout. And the best part, the kicker, through the link ammo.com/Lions of Liberty, you get $20 off your order of $200 or more. So support this show, help to spread the ideas of liberty, and buy some ammo to defend your personal liberty. Bam!
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. Of course, Felony Friday is only one of three shows that we have here on the Lions of Liberty podcast network. It is the longest running, the old school, the OG libertarian variety show. There's lots of posers out there now, people trying to rain on our parade, but we are the original, and don't forget it. And it all started back with our Monday podcast, hosted by Mark Clare. It's our longest running show. It was the original, the OG of the OG Lions of Liberty podcast. And on that show, Mark interviews leaders in the libertarian movement, and he hosts roundtable discussions called Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor. If you haven't heard them before, pretty entertaining, pretty fun. One was just released this past Monday. Unfortunately, I was not on it. From time to time, I am on them. I'm actually on most of them. But this one I wasn't on, and you know what? It was still really good. So I encourage you to go back and check it out. Every Wednesday, we have Electric Liberty Land, hosted by Brian McWilliams. Your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty. And I guess I should say that Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor segment is going to be taking place on more than just our Monday show. It used to really be relegated to that Monday time slot, but now we're going to have it once a month on the Wednesday show and once a month on Felony Friday, in a most likely in an Is It a Crime and Should They Do Time type roundtable format. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to more roundtable discussions with my good friends at Lions of Liberty, and also bringing in some outside voices to take part in that fun fun times. When you sip on a drink and just shoot the shit, as they say. Some good content. Some of the most popular content out there. If you haven't subscribed to the Lions of Liberty podcast, do it. Do it. Go to wherever you get your podcast and subscribe. I mean, you're a smart person. You found this podcast, so I'm sure you can find the subscribe button to pound. And then if you're feeling really frisky today, give us a little 5-star review. Leave us a nice little comment. That would be very, very much appreciated. That is really all I have for today. Today's show, before I get into today's show, I want to let you guys know that this is a long one, okay? More than an hour long, but it's freaking awesome. And my guest, JC Almanza, fantastic guy. Got to know him during this interview. It's the first time I ever talked to him. His story, he's going to talk about the lows of being in a Mexican prison and getting stabbed and then working his way all the way back. He spent time in U.S. prisons as well, but working back once he got released the first time as a personal trainer and getting thrown back in prison. And it's a crazy story. And this is a guy that has just worked his butt off to be where he is and to turn his life around. So hope you enjoyed today's show. Let's get right into it. My guest today on Felony Friday is JC Almanza. He grew up in a rough neighborhood in Chicago, and at a very young age got caught up in in a rough life, drinking, doing drugs, and stealing cars. All told, he spent about 17 years in prison, in and out on multiple stints. After getting out the last time, JC has hit the ground running. He's the founder of a really awesome organization called Wrong to Strong LLC, which is a nonprofit that is focusing on bettering the community by providing resources to those who are most vulnerable in that community. So, JC, welcome to Felony Friday.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate you taking some time out. Got introduced to you by a friend of ours, friend of yours, Michael Monsivice, good guy, another guy who's out there who's working hard for criminal justice reform, working his ass off. I guess the first place to start, man, what I like to do with my guests is kind of set the stage. I know your story is, it's got lots of different aspects to it. I don't want to skip over anything. So let's just start at the beginning. Growing up in Chicago, that situation there. Can you just sort of paint the picture of what your early years were like?
I grew up in Chicago, Latino neighborhood, Mexican neighborhood, and my dad was an alcoholic, and my parents were really, really young. So, kids having kids, I call it, and it's there was a very dysfunctional family, so a lot of abuse, mentally and physically, and my mom ended up trying to run away from my dad because of the abuse at home, and she ended up moving in with her brother in Sacramento, California. I think we lived there for about 2 years. I don't remember too much of it. I just remember kind of like the bad stuff because I was really young. And
how old were you at that time?
I want to say like 5, 6, maybe 7. When you start to remember, I remember some stuff, not too much, but I remember some stuff, mostly all the bad stuff. He's the one that started molesting me and my sisters, and a lot of abuse with him, a lot of torture, because the way he would, I guess you could say, if we did something wrong, was ice baths. It was torture, man. Dark room for hours. A lot of that stuff affected me long term. Like now that I'm grown up, I hate water. I don't sleep in dark rooms. So it was a lot of torture as a kid. So I kind of started growing up with kind of like a chip on my shoulder after that. So became very, very aggressive. And finally, my mom ended up moving to Mexico with her father. And even though my mom meant well, she was a little messed up mentally. So very abusive too, a lot of hitting and stuff like that. So I ended up one day, I remember the day, but one day I kind of like just had enough, and I was just like, that's it. You're not hitting me no more. And, she was like, well, then you could go live with your dad then. And I was like, yeah, send me, anything's better than this. So I remember the day I told her that, and I know it hurt her because she still, begged me the day before I left not to leave. But I had already made up my mind, and I wanted to come back to the United States. I wasn't happy in Mexico. Mm-hmm. I was already used to being here. So, I got sent back with my dad. When I got sent back with my dad, I was 11, but I was already a little messed up, you could say, in the head. And when I got to Chicago, 26th Street, my dad was kind of, I guess, still messing around. We in like the AA program, they call it being a dry drunk. He was sober, but he was still doing a lot of bad things that he shouldn't have been doing. So he was still messing around with girls, hanging out at the gym and stuff like that. So I got to run the streets like a little animal, man. Like I didn't have no rules. I was 11 years old, and I was staying out till about 2 a.m. on the weekends. So smoking weed, hanging out with. I always hung out with older guys all the time. I was 11, and all the people I hung around with were like 16, 17. So they were already, doing bigger crimes, So I graduated pretty fast into bigger crimes pretty fast. And that's how it started, really. I still remember my good friends of that time, that got me into my first fight. They got me into just all the first chaos that I got into. So, it just started there. And then after that, my grandparents found out that my dad was always gone. He was never there. So they stepped in and they took me to their home. And
they were in Chicago also?
Yeah, they were in Chicago too, but they lived in a different neighborhood. And I went from one neighborhood that was a different gang to another neighborhood that was a different gang. So now this neighborhood, I'm getting beat up because it's a different gang, and I come from this place. And I went from not having rules to having rules. And, they couldn't deal with me because I would jump out the window. I would sneak out. I would be gone all day. She would find, I had to protect myself because I lived in a really bad area. So I had to find ways to get guns. And, she would find guns in my dresser. She was always going through my stuff. I never had no kind of privacy. It was intense, man. I still remember to this day, and it still kind of stresses me out because to this day, today, barely today, as being 42, I barely know what a little bit of privacy is. Does that make any sense?
Does that come from all the time you spent locked up and
having that at home and then being in prison, no privacy? It's crazy how those little things could change you, So I started getting into a lot of trouble once I got into my grandma's house. And that's where it really started getting really, really out of hand because I was very, very unhappy.
Do you think that you started to rebel even more because of that, sort of having no privacy and feeling trapped?
Yes. And most of anything, not being understood, man, They didn't know what I went through as a kid. They didn't know what happened to me. They didn't try to I had an uncle, my Uncle Martin, my dad's brother, was the only one that really, really stepped in and really, really tried to help me, and he took me to the college, University of Illinois, to get some studies done on me because the teachers thought that I was actually slow, and he did studies on me. I'm actually above average intelligent. I was just using it for all the bad stuff. So, he stepped in a lot, man, but it was too late, man. I was lost. I was in the game, and I started hustling. I started selling weed, and I kind of fell in love with making money, man. Even if it was a couple $100 when I was young, I thought that was the solution to everything. So, I wanted to do it full time, and I ended up graduating to bigger things. And by the time I was 16, I was, working for the families in Mexico, what we call today the cartel, and graduated into that. And that was more money. So
how did that play out, getting involved with the cartel? Can you explain how does that happen?
Well, I had a friend of mine that I grew up with, a girl. She knew everybody. She's the one that taught me what you say, the game. And she hired me to be one of her mules. And when I got to Mexico, I met the main people. And I've always had a gift, I guess. Charisma. I win people over pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And, the guys in Mexico took a liking to me, and I started, working with them directly. And I just started making money at a really young age, man. what kid can you say that 16 years old is making 20 grand here and there? Not too many.
Yeah.
So best sneakers, best clothes, everything, and it just got me more in trouble. And I ended up getting caught when I was 17 in Mexico. So I did some time in the Mexican prisons, and those are real prisons. They're not. All the prisons here in the United States are 5-star hotels compared to that.
Can you explain a little bit, maybe some of the things that made it so much worse?
Well, when you get there, there's no assigned bunk. There's no assigned room. They just open the door and they just throw you in. And the people in there, since there's no control, no guards, no nothing, they're running around like savages pretty much. And, dog eat dog world pretty much. And I'll never forget when they opened up those doors and they just threw me in. And I was like, where's my cell? Where do I go sleep? And they're like, find a place, búscale. And, it's crazy because all these inmates are the ones running the show in there. And it was pretty bad, man. I've seen some pretty bad stuff over there because there's no control. The guards only come in, maybe once or twice a day, and that's it.
And how much time did you do in Mexico?
I did almost 4 years waiting for my American transfer. I was that project. It was when they were transferring inmates, Americans for Mexicans here in the United States. There was a program that they had back in the 90s. So there was like a waiting list to get transferred over. The American Exchange Program. That's what it was.
So when you got transferred over, you were probably happy with that to get out of there.
Oh man, it was the best day of my life. For one, I owed a lot of money over there, and everybody was like chasing me like where am I going? And it was it was funny because there's so many drugs and alcohol over there inside the prison that like that's what people do every day. So I became very, very addicted to like crack cocaine, alcohol, cocaine, just big amounts, because it's like that's how they deal with the inmates there. Like they flood the prison with drugs. So
it's just coming in. The guards are bringing it in, selling it, or
Yep. It's just they're bringing it in, and the main guys just run the show. And
where do prisoners get money to pay for it?
Man, people wash clothes, clean rooms. You'll be surprised, man. Like, it's crazy because, like, at first, when I first got there, my people were taking care of me. They were sending me about $1,000 a month. And $1,000 inside of a prison, dollars, is a lot of money. But I was going through it like I was broken like a week because my drug habit just got so out of control that, I was just out of control, man. It's crazy because when I left Mexico, my waist was like a 29. I think I was weighing like 120 pounds, man. I was in bad condition.
So when you got transferred back to the States, where did you end up from there?
I ended up going to a federal prison, La Tuna, in El Paso, Texas, and that's where I got transferred to. That was like the receiving prison for the inmates coming in from Mexico. But when I was on the plane flying over, I seen how fucked up all the Americans were, man. Like, talk about they didn't call it PTSD back then. What I mean? They didn't. I guess they didn't diagnose it yet back then. Right. But I still remember to this day how I look back at the plane and everybody looked really bad. There was Americans that were like shaking. The violence had got to them, the abuse. I got stabbed a couple of times over there, but it was because I was a troublemaker and I was always into something, because I ran with a pretty big strong crew there. Like I've always been smart enough to know to fit in where I get in. Like I've always kind of managed to, talk my way into places. So I did okay. I got into trouble because I wanted to. I was getting into trouble because I was a troublemaker. But a lot of those dudes didn't have a chance. A lot of those dudes got probably picked on, probably raped, probably, abused, because it's like I said, it's a jungle. It's a dog eat dog world.
So you just casually dropped in there that you got stabbed a couple times. So how did you recover from getting stabbed in prison? I mean, is there medical treatment in a Mexican prison?
They took me to the medical and, checked to see if I needed stitches. And it was a couple of cuts that, were done with a razor, and, they patched me up, and that was it. I mean, I got out and back to the same old thing. I mean, honestly, to tell you the truth, when that time passed by, I didn't even feel it. Like I didn't realize that so much time had passed by. My mom would go and visit me, and the first thing I would ask would be for money. And, now that I think about it, I feel so bad because like I would leave her in my cell and I would go get high and then come back, and, and she would be sitting there, waiting for me. And I was just very, very lost, man, very, very lost in my drug addiction, and just, I guess, sad being in prison like that and somewhere else. And it was a bad time, man. Bad time in my life.
So when you got back in the States, how much time did you end up serving on the rest of that sentence?
When I got back to the United States, they put us in a room and they started showing us movies about Vietnam vets. And this is the part where my head clicked, and post-traumatic stress. Like they were actually showing us people that came back from war, how messed up they were, blah, blah, blah. And while I was in the room, I decided to tell my story. I decided to, tell them how I got stabbed, how things happened. And it was just because I kind of felt like I had been in counseling my whole life. So I kind of felt that that's what I needed to do, because it was like a natural reaction for me. Like I need to talk about it in order to feel better. And I started talking to the counselor, and I told her everything that happened to me. And I actually got, I think it was 4 or 5 years off my sentence for pain and suffering. Was
that common, do you think, with other prisoners coming back from Mexico to the U.S., or do you think that was?
I think so, man. It's just, I think that a lot of those guys were so messed up in the head, man, that like they didn't say nothing. Like I'm telling you, I look back at the plane, and I actually said thank you to God for letting me be like in my prime of like violence and my prime of being young, because like if you were to send me there right now, I wouldn't make it, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not that tough no more. I'm not. They would have ate me fucking alive. I wouldn't have made it. And it's a very tough world.
So obviously, right? You look at yourself today, right? And I talked about during the introduction, the things you've accomplished with Wrong to Strong and everything else you're working on. So what happened? Was there like an event? Was there, an epiphany you had, something that changed your mindset? Yes.
And so I was getting into trouble back and forth, and I wanted to change, but at the same time, I would get a job, and I've always actually done very, very well. Like I got a job at Walmart, I became the manager. I got a job at Marriott, I became like the superintendent. Like I always did very, very well in all my jobs, but to a certain point, I've always missed the big money, the fast life, the women, the drugs. So I would miss it, and I would be good for maybe 6 months, and then I would look for trouble. I would get in trouble, and then I would get locked up. So, it was like almost like a high. And I ended up catching like a federal case in 2008, and I got sent away. Did federal time. I said to myself, this time, that's it. I'm done. I was tired. And little things happened to start changing. I learned how to read really good because I spent a lot of time on transfer. So I started picking up, James Patterson books. I started reading a lot, and I actually started to fall in love with reading. So then I was like, I'm gonna try and get my GED. Mm-hmm. So I got my GED, and little by little, I always say that little by little, I started telling myself, you know what? Because I always told myself, dumb man. I always believed it. I guess from all those years of hearing that as a kid, I actually made myself believe it. So I didn't try to do better. I didn't try to learn. So it almost became an addiction. Like if I show you like a picture of all the certificates that I got while I was inside, it's like a list. Like I went from leather shop to I got an associate's in religion. Anything I could get my hands on. Like I was hungry. And I got accepted to the RDEP program. It's a federal program that you live in a special housing unit for 9 months, and if you graduate, it actually knocks off 4 years off your sentence. 2 years a halfway house, 2 years good time. It knocks off a big chunk. So a lot of people try to get into that program, and I was lucky enough to actually get sent to it in Florida. And when I got there, I was praying on the bus. I was like, please, please let there be no Latin Kings there. Please, please, please. Because that's the gang that I belong to. And, I get off the bus and there's like 63 of them there. And I'm like, oh, shit, man. It's, I'm going to have to participate. I'm going to have to go out to the yard. And the thing is about that RDEP program is that if you get into any trouble or if you get affiliated that you're hanging around, they know you're a gang member, but if they find out that you're actually participating, you get kicked out of the program and you lose that time. So I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Like, and I remember I went up to the yard and they were all sitting around, and I told them, I was like, hey, I don't want to be part of this no more. I just don't want to do this no more. And I got up and I told them I'm going to cover up my gang tattoo. And they're like, there's going to be consequences, JC. And I was like, I know, man. I know. I kind of had just thrown in the towel, man. I was kind of tired already. I didn't really care no more if I got stabbed or if I got beat up or if I lost the program. I was just tired, and I wanted to change. And I went to work that day, and I was praying the whole time. I was praying to God just to give me a chance to, do better and learn and get out and just have a different life. And that same night I was working in the kitchen, and one of my friends runs up to me and he's like, hey, they're escorting all your friends out. And I was like, escorting my friends out? And he's like, yeah. So I ran out to the window, and I guess they had a real big investigation on the Land Kings there before I even got there, because they were like sneaking phones in and, doing stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. And that day they pulled them all out. So I took that as a sign from God, man.
Wow.
Like he saved my ass. So I was like, I got to do right from this day on. So, I went out to the yard the next day, and the couple of guys that were left were the guys that were on the same page as me, just wanted to do good, get out, go home, and just, just stay out of the bullshit. Mm-hmm. And, they were like, well, JC, we love how you are, man. You're a strong dude. We want you to be our shot caller. I was like, yo, I don't want to be no shot caller. I just want to do the program, and I want to go home. That's it. Mm-hmm. I don't want to participate in nothing. I just want to do the program, go to church, go to school, and, just go home, because I was actually studying to be a personal trainer while I was inside prison.
Okay.
So, I studied my ass off, man. And, at the end of the day, it paid off because they actually let me have a classroom in the prison where I was teaching other inmates how to become personal trainers.
Really? How did that come about? I mean, was that something that it's typical or?
No, man. It's just they honestly, the counselors, the guards, everybody just saw that, I led by example, man. I was still, everything but was by code still. Look, I was still an inmate. I wasn't talking to guards. I wasn't snitching, none of that shit. It was just that I carried myself with respect and I did what I said I was going to do. So I went to school and the lady that actually ran the school seen that and she was like, hey, how would you like to help some of these guys? Because she's seen how the guys would respect me and follow me around. So she's like, how would you like to start a class and teach these guys how to, become personal trainers when they get out and, do something with their life? And I was like, I would love to do that because I didn't like to waste my time watching TV, man. Like I was always on the go. I was always dreaming about what I was going to do when I got home. I've always been a dreamer, man. I get in my head a lot and I dream a lot. So I started doing that and it just kept me busy until I came home. So. Well,
I mean, you talk about dreaming, I think most people who are entrepreneurial, most people who have, some sort of vision, and just prior to that, your vision, your entrepreneurial drive was for illegal stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you were probably still dreaming back then too. It was just about, about stuff that got you in trouble. But after you shifted that focus, it kind of makes sense that you were able to hit the ground running.
I got out in 2013, February 20th, and 2 weeks later, I was working for LA Fitness as a personal trainer. 6 months later, I was their master trainer.
You didn't have any problem with a felony on the record? They didn't?
Well, I walked in and I was like, who's your fitness director? And I already had on paper what I was going to say. I got these 2 notebooks that I carry around with me that I had since I was in prison. But I already had my what I was going to say, everything. And I was like, who's your fitness director? And they sent me to her. And she's still a good friend of mine to this day. And I was like, hey, I'm going to work for you. And she's like, no, you're not. Not with all those tattoos. And I was like, no, I'm going to work for you because I know my shit and I'll be able to sell personal training. So I'll be able to do 2 jobs. And I just broke it down to her. And she's like, I like your attitude. I like the energy that you have. But, let me ask you something. Did you just get out of prison? I was like, yes, I just got out a week ago. But don't change the subject. So, and I left a little bummed out because she was like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have to run this by my boss. And I left and I ended up getting a job in construction and I was working at the time and their main boss called me and he was from New York. So that kind of helped me. He was from New York. He gave me a call. He's like, hey, JC, I heard about you. He was like, I would like to meet you. I was like, when? He's like, if you could come in today. I was like, I'll be right there. So I even took the chance to I quit my construction job on site right there.
Oh, wow.
Because I was that sure that I was going to get that job since I had that phone call. I knew I was going to get that job. So I quit. I left. I was all the way in Mesa. It's pretty far from Phoenix. And got all the way to Phoenix and sat down and talked to him. He's like, man, I really like you, man. He's like, I'm going to stick my neck out for you. He's like, you're not going to make me look bad. And I was like, no, sir. You give me a chance and I'll show you what I could do. And he's like, you're going to have to cover your tattoos. You're going to have to wear long sleeves. I was like, that's fine. I'll go get all my stuff tomorrow. When can I start? He's like, you can start tomorrow. And I started, man. And, I ended up being one of their busiest trainers. I was pretty much, people were coming from other gyms just to train with me because they had heard about my prison style workouts. They had heard, this tatted up guy I had a red mohawk back then. So, I pretty much stuck out. Red mohawk covered in tattoos, burpees were my signature move. And I was in a rich, it's called the Biltmore area. It's a rich area here in Phoenix. So I stuck out like a sore thumb, man. Like I stuck out like people knew who JC was pretty much. That's cool. 6 months later, they made me their master trainer, and I was doing really, really good. And I ended up leaving a year later because I ended up opening my own gym, Alpha Omega Fitness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you tired of banging your head against the proverbial wall of politics and getting nowhere toward actually making your life more free? Are you tired of interview podcasts that have the same guests as every other libertarian interview podcast out there? Are you tired of hearing the same news stories that you can hear on the mainstream media? Then you need to listen to The Lava Flow, where we don't do politics and we don't do the major stories that exist only to divide you. We talk about news that affects you and your freedom, and we work to find solutions that can actually help you to be more free. Check us out at thelavaflow.com.
Listen to Weird Libertarians at WeirdLibertarians.com. My name is Chris Spangle, and I host a show where we talk about the stories you and your friends are talking about, and then we give you libertarian solutions so you sound smarter when you're talking to your friends. We're going to make you sound like a genius. Tune in now at WeirdLibertarians.com.
Are those dry, boring, run-of-the-mill political talk shows putting you to sleep on your commute or at work? Are you ready for some fun?
Look no further. Blast Off with Johnny Rocket is a Seattle-based podcast expressing viewpoints of free markets, voluntary exchange, badass music, wicked banner, and of course, drinking.
The Blast Off doesn't shy from the truth, but always brings the party.
Let's rock and roll, Raylene.
Bring it on, Johnny.
You can check us out at thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Again, that's thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction.
So you were able to save up enough money in a year to be able to open your own gym, or did you bring on investors? Or
I brought in 2 investors that ended up screwing me at the end because I knew nothing about business, but I would leave work at 7 o'clock at night, go straight to the building and do construction until about 2 in the morning. Then I would be back at LA Fitness at 5 in the morning. And I did that for almost 7 months until I was able to open the doors. It was short-lived because a lot of personal stuff started happening. I started dating. And it didn't work out because I was still very insecure, very controlling, jealous. And I was actually dating someone that was out of my comfort zone. And by the reason why I say that, it was that she was an educated woman. And I really never thought that I would date someone like that because I was used to dating, I guess, people that came from the same background as me. And I was very, very jealous. She was around doctors all the time. And I moved in with her. So I felt, she made more money than me and everything. And she was actually really, really good to me, man. But I didn't know how to take it in. So she ended up leaving me, and it took kind of a toll on me, and I kind of went into a depression where I just didn't really give a fuck anymore, and I started drinking here and there, and people that know me from back then, like Bo, one of my guys that was working there as a trainer at my gym, seeing how bad of a place I got into. And, you know, I ended up kind of coming out of it, and I ended up working at another gym after that. I let my gym go because the owners that I went in as partners, you know, were just pretty much just screwing me. Like I wasn't making no money. I was just there all day. It was a really bad situation. So I ended up, you know, moving to another gym, Fit Training Center in Phoenix. And I actually started doing very, very well there, to the point where it got to my head and I didn't know how to deal with being successful. Mm-hmm. And started going out a lot, started messing around with girls a lot. And one day at a pool party, you know, I had been out already I was going almost on 4 years, and my PO wasn't dropping me no more or nothing. So I was at a pool party. There was girls. There was naked girls there, alcohol. I took a hit off a joint. And guess what? The next day my PO calls me, tells me, hey, I need you to come in and drop. To this day, I still look up and I'm like, man, you have a sense of humor, man. Like it's like, you know, he gave me enough chain to hang myself, you know. And it's after I tested dirty, you know, he submitted some paperwork, so I kind of threw the towel in, man. I was like, fuck it, you know.
And what year was this?
2015.
Okay.
And he actually tried to help me, man. He sent me to rehab. He sent me to a couple places. But in my head, I was already like, fuck it. Like, you know, he's going to send me back anyways. You know, the system's against me. The system is meant for me to fail. And yeah, I was playing the victim role too much. And it was just because I wanted to fuck up. It wasn't nothing else, you know. I have to be man enough to man up to it, you know. And yeah, he ended up violating me, and I got sent back that year, and they sent me to a really fucking bad place in California, Victorville, behind the wall. It was a bad place. As soon as we got there off the bus, some dude had got stabbed in the kitchen. There was blood on the floor when we got there, and it was over a piece of chicken. You know, when I say behind the wall, there's a lot of, you know, lifers and just people that have a lot of time, you know, and it was like that day is when I sat down and I was like, what the fuck? What just happened? Like, why? Like, why are you back? And what made it even worse, man, is that I had covered up my gang tattoo. So now I'm considered a dropout. That's really bad in prison. That's really, really bad. So I never thought I was going to go back. Mm-hmm. So here I am back in a really bad place.
All because you took a hit off a joint.
Yeah.
You're back.
And I just didn't care no more. You know? And you know, it's crazy how God works in mysterious ways, man. But, you know, when I was walking to my cell, it was a big guard, big black guy. You could tell he worked out. And he looked at my leg, and I have 5% tattooed on my leg. It's Rich Piana's supplement line, you know what I mean? And I used to rep him really hard because I was trying to, you know, get sponsored by them and be one of their athletes when I was out, you know, working out and all that stuff. And, you know, he's like, you're a 5%er? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, no, for real, man. He's like, whatever, dude. And he locked me in my cell. So I was like, you know, lay down, start reading. About 10 minutes later, he comes up to the door. He's like, hey, I Googled you. He's like, you're the real deal, man. He's like, you got a lot of workout videos on, you know, YouTube. And I was like, yeah, I told you. He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? You have 6 months to do, and you're in a fucking max prison? I was like, I don't know. He's like, I'm going to talk to the counselor in the morning, man, and I'm going to see what's up. Because of him, they transferred me out of there a week later, man, and they sent me to a low facility, Lompoc. That's where I met Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time I've been to a low security prison my whole life. I had never seen so many white people in my life in prison.
It's all because you got that tattoo, that 5% tattoo.
There was a lot of, white collar crimes there. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of sex offenders there. There was a lot of people that wouldn't have survived in medium or max prisons where I had been at. And, it was so funny to me because I got off the bus and they had a fucking tennis court. And I was like, what the fuck?
Every prison doesn't have a tennis court? You didn't have that down in Mexico?
I was like, where the fuck did they send me to? And then I keep walking, and they have the whole yard has grass, and a huge weight pile with like every kind of weight you could possibly think of. So I was like, man, this is fucking heaven for me. So, I got there and, so when you get to prison, you got to pick who you're going to like roll with, who you're going to sit with. You got to get all that out the way before you want to go hang out and, make friends and all that shit. And, I got there and there were no Latin Kings there because I was in California. And there was a lot of Mexicans, they call them paisas in there. I decided to sit with them because, my parents are Mexican. I'm Mexican. I consider them my people. So, I went up to their main person and told them, hey, I'm going to sit with you guys. And at first they were a little bit like, because you don't want to just let any gangbanger sit with you because they could bring drama to your table. Mm-hmm. So they were like, well, we got to ask, the Southsiders first. We got to ask the other guys first if they're cool with it. And I was like, yeah, go ahead. I had my paperwork. And what I mean about that is I wasn't a child molester. I wasn't a rat. So I had my paperwork and they were like, all right, you can sit with us. They needed soldiers, man. The Mexicans, most of them are there for illegal entry. Yeah, there's a couple of scumbags, low lives, but they're mostly all just people that try to come out here to fucking work. Yeah. So they're not looking for trouble. You know what I mean? So they need a couple of roughnecks in their crew. So they let me in. I sat with them and, start doing my time, man. I mean, me and Mike hit it off pretty fast because he was in the same unit as I was, and I became friends with him and his boy Vic. And I didn't have nobody sending me money or nothing, man. And I always had to kind of like hustle or just kind of like find the right people who to hang out with so I could like get a fucking shot of coffee, man. And that's how me and Mike actually became really good friends, is that he seen me sitting down one day by my bunk, and he's like, hey, you got some coffee? And I was like, huh? He's like, you want a shot? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you got one? And, he gave me a shot, and he told me, my locker's right there, dude. Whenever you want, it's open. Go ahead. He's a really good dude, man. Really good dude. I got a lot of love for him, a lot of respect. And him and Vic always took care of me, man. When they would make food, they'd always put a little bit to the side for me. And, they showed me a lot of love, man. And in there, you build strong friendships, man. It made me a little bit emotional just think about it. But, you build a really strong bond with these guys where, if shit ever hits the fan, you're like ready to kill for each other. So, it's it's a life that a lot of people don't understand, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it was cool, you know. It was I wouldn't take that time back. You know, it made me who I am today. And by that I mean, you know, I actually sat down and really thought about my life and said, you know, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to keep doing this bullshit or what? Like, and no, I decided not to. I decided to come home and just hit the ground fucking running, man. And, you know, my biggest thing is I have to lead by example now because, like, you know, our friend Vic, he still has a lot of time to do, and he'll send me texts. You know, I send him letters, pictures here and there, and, you know, I have some of my friends that are doing, you know, 63, 70 years, and they call me, you know, excited to hear what I'm doing now. You know, did you finish your book yet? Did you do this? What are you doing now? They're living their life through our eyes. So, like, it's very important that, you know, I stay doing what I'm doing, man.
Right. That makes sense. You're out in Phoenix now. What originally brought you out to, I know when you got out the last time, you were in Phoenix working in gyms. What took you out to Phoenix?
Well, at the time, the very first time I came out here, my grandparents came out here to retire, and they lived in Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. That's how I visited the very first time. But when I got out, I used my dad's address. My dad was living out here. He doesn't live out here no more, but he was living out here, and my stepmom, they relocated now to Miami and North Carolina. But I came out here and moved in with them. And then, you know, I ended up I have a kid out here. And so, you know, I ended up just staying out here. Honestly, you couldn't pay me to go back to Chicago. I probably wouldn't make it, man. And I had a lot of enemies. I did a lot of bad stuff, you know, and, you know, people don't forget. You know, and it's only a matter of time. A couple of days ago, I got some bad news of one of my, you know, close friends that I grew up with. He was shot to death, and out of 20 of us that we grew up together, there's only about 5 of us left, and
that's crazy.
You know, 3 of them are doing life sentence, and 2 I'm here, and Eddie's in Chicago, and like, to think there was so many of us, and now, like, they're mostly all gone. So it's like,
it's crazy. And you're what? You said you're like 40 years old.
42.
Right? Yeah, you're a young guy. That's nuts. So once you got out that last time, just tell us about, you know, the process. You know, starting Wrong to Strong. How did that all come about?
Well, I got out and I went to the halfway house, and I was a little worried about, like, where I was going to live. I had kind of, like, burned my bridges with my uncle, the one that lived out here. So I was, like, really stressed out and worried about, you know, what I was going to do, where I was going to live, you know, how I was going to survive. And I ended up, you know, growing some balls and calling my uncle and saying that I was sorry, you know, for not apology, just being rude, man, being nasty, and, like, when you don't want to accept that you're wrong, you know, your pride, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I ended up fixing those ties with him, and he ended up opening his doors to me. So right out the halfway house, I got out and I moved into his place. Slowly but surely, some of my clients started hearing that I was back out, that I was home again. I got 1 client, 2 clients. Little by little, they started coming back, and it was hard at first because I didn't have a vehicle, didn't have a driver's license, didn't have nothing. So, you know, I had to get up really, really early to walk all the way to work because the buses don't run 24 hours here like in the big cities. So, you know, I had to leave the house at, like, sometimes 2 in the to get to walk all the way to the gym where I was working at to be there by 3:30, you know, and I was really, really motivated, man. And I ended up I want to say 6 months later, I ended up meeting a girl, my baby's mom, and I did the same thing I've always done, and that meet a girl, shack up with her, get her pregnant. I have it's something that I still needed to fix. It was like it's a flaw that I had. Like, I guess codependency, I guess that's what you could want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was pregnant like 6 months later, and I ended up moving in with her. It turned into a really bad, toxic relationship to the point where, it was just bad, man. And, I'm kind of getting off the subject, but at the time when I first met her, I started building Wrong to Strong, and it was kind of like my outlet. I would spend, 18 hours at the gym building this, talking about it, designing my shirts, my web page, and blah blah blah. And I think what motivated me the most is that she was pregnant, and I knew I was going to have another baby girl. So it motivated me to the point where I was maybe sleeping 2 hours a day and still functioning, still training really hard, still, coming up with ideas for what we were going to do. My crew got really big, so I had a lot of people. Like I had like everybody was making fun of me because they said I had a fitness gang, and I had about 20 guys in the morning coming in working out with me. Everybody was wearing the shirts. We looked like a gang, we looked like a gang, and I think sometime in the middle when it started getting really bad. I mean, I can't lie, I started falling into some of my bad habits, and I have, like I told you, I'm man enough to accept my, where I fucked up. And, I started cheating on her. I started falling back into my old habits of the old, I call it the old JC. And, it came to the point where I was like, okay, I need to move out. I need to do things right. Like, what is really Wrong or Strong? Like, is it just for show? Is it like, am I fake? And I had to have one of those come to Jesus moments where, like, I had to go back to AA. I had to go back to seeing my counselor. I had to make the changes in order for me to get better again. And like now that I go to the prisons to go talk to the guys, I always tell them, leave the girls alone, man. Leave the girls alone because, we come out and that's the first thing we're looking for. We're looking for love and that companionship. And that's by far, we don't need that. Like, you need to get right first. Mm-hmm. So, I've been lucky enough that I have a really strong support group behind me, and all my clients are like family. They all help me build what I have now. And I just keep trying to get better every day, man. I mean, it never stops. I went to an AA meeting today, and I went to go speak to a NA meeting today too. And it's just like the gym, man. I just got to keep moving forward, man. It's really easy to do the stuff that you're used to doing, man.
Absolutely. I mean, the hardest thing to do is to change, step out of your comfort zone and do things that, you're not used to doing. That's how you grow, though, right?
Yeah.
You change.
Yeah. And, my biggest thing, man, has always been is that, like, I learned that if you fuck up, like, own up to it, because that's the only way you're going to change. Like, if you play the victim, or if you say, no, it was her fault. No, she wasn't doing the dishes, or she wasn't doing this. This is why I did that. No, like, if you don't own up to it, you're never going to change. And, some people might hate you for being completely blunt or honest, but, you shouldn't worry about other people. You should worry about you getting better, So, I mean, I carry my tune to it. I'm different nowadays.
That's good advice, though. So what else? I mean, because you have a supplement line too, or
Yes.
is that a part of? So like, what is Wrong to Strong? I mean, is that a part of? Are the supplements a part of that, or like what all do you have going on? Because you got a ton of stuff going on.
Wrong to Strong is like everything, man. It's like I shouldn't have read so many like how to be millionaires books while I was in prison. But yeah, we have our own supplement line. We have a pre-workout, sour apple, fruit punch. We have BCAs. Those are watermelon. And we have fat burners. And the name of the supplement line is called the Yard. Go figure. It's got gun towers, barbed wire. Those are the supplements. But I'm trying to get out of the supplements because it's really not what I want to do. I made a mistake by getting into that field. It's too saturated. There's too much competition. Mm-hmm. There's just too much. It wasn't a smart business decision. So I'm trying to get out of that and just be done with that. Okay. Wrong to Strong is a clothing line. As you can see, the T-shirts. Can you see it?
Can't see. No. You have to stand up. There you go.
So that's a T-shirt. In the back it says Fitness Felon. Actually, the clothing line has done a lot better than the supplement line.
We should do a T-shirt swap. I'll send you a Felony Friday shirt. You can send me one of those.
Sure. Yeah, of course. And it's also a nonprofit. So I'm working on my grants right now to have them submitted by April so I could spend more time in the prisons because I work with so they got me security cleared for 2 years to go into the state prison here in Arizona. And I go in there and they have the Second Chance program here that just started 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the Second Chance program, what it does is it teaches inmates how to get jobs, how to do resumes, how to weld, how to do construction, just how to be productive citizens pretty much, and they're actually helping, these, because, the return rate's really high. It's 82%. So they're actually trying to like cut it down a little bit because, Arizona is one of the biggest states that has a lot of private prisons. So a lot of people are making money on these guys coming back. So I go there twice a month for the graduation. I speak. They show my video. I talk to them. I want to be a motivational speaker. I want to study it. I want to practice it. I want to be good at it. I want to spend more time with them. I feel that that's my calling because I feel like how you feel when you go to church or when you feel like you go somewhere and you get like this feeling, you leave out of there really happy, like with a smile. It feeds my soul. So every time I go to the prison, I talk to these guys and, they love my story. So like, it feels really good to me. And I feel like that's what I want to do. So I hoped I could get these grants going. I really want to spend more time in there with them. And, they're willing to actually give me a classroom also so I could do what I was doing in the federal prison, teaching these guys how to be personal trainers. Mm-hmm. So I just got to figure a way to pay my bills and hang out at prison all day. So,
yeah. Well, the good thing is, there's been a change in the last couple of years, and prisons are allowing this, and these types of programs are starting to thrive. So, I'm not sure what led to it, but it's been a slow process. But it looks like people are finally starting to wake up in this country.
Well, have you seen that movie on Netflix called The 13th?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you need to check it out because it talks about how the prison system got started here in the United States. And it talks about how when slavery became illegal, you had all these farm owners that didn't have no more workers. And what was the best way? They were locking up, black males, whatever, for petty crimes, and they created the chain gang. And they go into detail how this started growing more and more and more. We're 25, I think it says it on, you need to watch it, but it's kind of like, it'll make you think twice. 25% of the population in the United States has either been incarcerated or is incarcerated. That's
really?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I know the number of felons. I mean, and not every felon does time, but it's something crazy like 30% or.
We're the highest in the whole world. Mm-hmm. The whole world, and that should say something.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have no programs when I was in and out of prison, man. I didn't get no kind of help, nothing. And and you have a lot of these. So now that these grants are coming in, and I seen it the last time I was at the prison. Now that there's money there for these guys to try and get better, you have all these dudes that are stepping in with suits that are opening up sober living places, halfway houses. They're all in it for the buck, man. And, I want to really, really get this grant, and because I consider myself a specialist in this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay to have people wanting to make money off of doing it, as long as they're not doing it in an exploiting way. It's okay for people to make money, right? If they're helping people. I mean, that's what business is.
Yes.
There's a pain point, and you solve the pain point and you help people. I mean, that's capitalism right there. So people making money in and of itself isn't bad, but if they have ulterior motives for it, and they're exploiting people or doing nefarious things, yeah, that's a problem. I just
really want to step in, man, and I really want to really change these guys' lives, man, and show them that there's a better way, and that we live in the best country in the freaking world, man. Like, dreams actually come true, in the United States.
Yeah.
If you work hard enough, you could get whatever you want. Like, all these self-made millionaires, billionaires that we have here started from nothing, and I read all these books about all these people, man, and I was like, shit, man, if they did it, I could do it, but you have to have that mentality about, one, staying out, two, hard work. Hard work pays off.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that, you have to actually live by these codes, or else you won't do it. I mean, my routine every morning, man, I get up and I dream. I dream about what Wrong and Strong is going to be, where it's going to be. Like right now, I've been dreaming about, if I get that grant money, how I want to build like a Boys and Girls Club, like a prison style gym with a laundry mat, computer room, a meeting room, to have these guys come in, pick them up at the halfway house in vans, bring them in, and make them feel like they're part of something, and have them volunteer, work there, and just like a mentorship program, and pretty much just I just visualize it every day in the morning, and I listen to my motivational stuff. Very rarely do I watch TV. I read a lot. I have a lot of books. I take notes a lot. I'm just constantly on the go trying to learn something. Right now I'm trying to learn how to edit my own videos, because I don't want to pay people to do it no more.
Yeah. You and me both.
So, I got the app running on this laptop. I got this laptop running. I got the phone going. So it's like I'm always trying to do something and use my time very, very wisely, man. Even when I'm in my car. There's times that I listen to music, but very rarely. I listen to music when I work out. But when I'm in my car, I'm actually listening to like audiobooks. I'm trying to learn something or positive, just, I don't know, man. I'm not the average guy, man. I'm a little crazy, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am too, because I'm the same way. When I'm in my car, it's either audiobooks or podcasts, motivational podcasts or podcasts, based on, I'm a libertarian, so libertarian content, learning about those types of things. But I mean, I think that's good. We're at a point in society where education is more affordable and more accessible than ever before. You pick up your phone and you can learn. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to pay someone $20,000. I mean, you can learn right now. You can go on YouTube and see a video on how to do anything you want to do.
Yep.
So
it's funny that you say that, because I couldn't put my bed together when I first bought it. And I was like, man, fuck that. I'm going to YouTube it.
Yeah.
So I YouTubed it. How to put your bed together in my exact frame, everything. Yeah. So I was like, man, I'm infatuated with YouTube, man. I love YouTube. Like,
it's the best.
I pay for the what is it called? YouTube Red.
Yeah.
I could have like no commercials, none of that stuff. So I pay for that, but I constantly stay on there, man, because man, there's so much you can learn from there, man. The Art of War. I listen to books on there sometimes too. And it's great. I love YouTube, man. It's the best thing ever invented, I believe.
That's it might be actually to this point. I'm sure better stuff will be invented, but to this point in time, it might be the best. Just before I let you go, we've been talking for an hour, more than an hour, so I appreciate your time. But if you can just plug, let everyone know where they can find Wrong to Strong, where they can find anything else you're working on. Just plug away.
Well, my YouTube channel is Wrong to Strong. My Instagram is Wrong to Strong. My Facebook is JC Fit, but I have my business page, Wrong to Strong. Everything's pretty much Wrong to Strong. If you actually Google Wrong to Strong, I'm pretty sure my stuff will come up.
It does. I did that before this interview. It does.
And I got a lot of reviews, so I'm pretty high up there in the what do they call it, search engine. And I learned that on YouTube too. So. Yeah, I mean, pretty much just Wrong to Strong, and there's some big things happening. So, I'm getting ready we should be done with my book about my life in a couple of months. So that's coming up, and just more stuff, man. I mean, we're constantly working on stuff.
All right, man. Well, once you finish your book, let me know, and we'll have you back on to talk about that.
Yep, you got it, man.
All right, sounds good, man. If you want to give any parting words, any advice for anyone out there listening who's going through a tough spot, maybe they just got out of prison?
It's never too late to ask for help, man. It's never too late to change, and it's never too late to learn. Those three right there. Absolutely. And hard work does pay off.
Well, thank you so much for your time, JC. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Well, that, my friends, is the end of an amazing interview. I mean, if you guys didn't enjoy that interview, if you didn't really, if you weren't on the edge of your seat going through those dips and just imagining living what JC went through, just absolutely incredible. When he's talking about coming back, being transferred back to the United States from Mexican prisons after just living that, being stabbed in a Mexican prison multiple times, and and saying up front that if that happened to him today as an older man, he wouldn't make it. The only reason he made it out of there is because he was young and tough and stupid, and he knew what to do. He knew how to navigate himself in those situations. But what an incredible story! And if that's, and I told JC during the interview, this is motivation for people who are in the criminal justice system or who have spent time in the system or are going to spend time in the system, that you can come back from anything. But it's also motivation just for the regular person out there, the regular Joe, who's just struggling through the day to day. And, you can turn your life around like that tomorrow. You can change your life tomorrow. You can change your identity tomorrow on who you are. Imagine, we've had so many great guests on this show who have been through so much, they've been, really suffered tremendous injustice. Some people thrown in prison for murders they didn't commit. JC did commit crimes. He's not saying he didn't commit crimes, but the time that he did, and the person that he identified himself as a criminal. And he talked about that especially when he, and this, I wouldn't say the last time he was thrown in was a crime. That one was when he just he smoked a little bit of weed and failed a probation test and got thrown back in for that reason. I wouldn't say that he necessarily, obviously, did not harm anyone there. There's no victim, there's no crime, no victim, no time. Slogan for the show. My point being with all of this, all of this rambling that's going on here, is that to come back from that, to come back from feeling like you've let yourself down, your family down, and to peel yourself off the pavement in a jail cell, pick yourself back up, and decide that you want to make a change, that you've just had enough of this life. You want to get out of the life that you were in. For JC, it was getting out of the gangs, getting out of the life of crime, getting out of stealing cars, getting out of drugs, getting out of all of that stuff. For somebody else who might be, stuck in a job they hate, a relationship that they're sick of, maybe they just don't have confidence. Maybe they don't have faith in themselves. Maybe they don't have faith in anything out there. Anybody can pick themselves up off the pavement of life and start a new life tomorrow. It sounds ridiculous, but all you have to do is look around. Look at the people who have had on this show. Look at what they've overcome. If you haven't heard a lot of these stories, go back in the archives and listen. Guys, if this stuff doesn't motivate you, I don't know what does. Just want to encourage you guys. We only have one life. And, the more I do this show, the more that I'm beginning to realize just how important being intentional in your life is, and making decisions that benefit your future, not just doing things to do them. I've seen so much injustice. You think I'd get used to it, but I've seen so many people be put through the ringer of this criminal justice system, and almost to a person, they do not carry a grudge. They do not carry hatred with them. They found a way to get past that. They found a way to start a new life. And really, if they can do it, anybody can do it. So that's my message for you today. And I will step off my soapbox, and I'll just say one more thing. If you enjoy this show, if you enjoy what we do here, please support us. Please follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. On Twitter, we're at Lions of Liberty. On Twitter. We are at Lions of Liberty on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at John Odermatt. Please join our Lions of Liberty forum on Facebook. Just go to Facebook, type Lions of Liberty forum in the search bar at the top, and hit join, and we'll get you right in as long as you are a regular person. And lastly, if you've been listening for a while, you're wondering what else you can do to help, please consider joining the Lions of Liberty Pride. You get merchandise, all kinds of different access to us, and if you get to the $25 level, you get a conference call, and there's the $15 level, you get a daily news link email that we send out. So check it all out. Go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much for listening to this very, very long episode. I appreciate you guys. We appreciate all of our listeners. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.